Hello, folks. Hope you're well. If you are loving the podcast, long-term fan, you've maybe been listening to a few episodes and like it, please make sure that you're subscribing to my Sunday Thoughts email newsletter that I send every Sunday. I give some perspective on self-improvement, and it's just some nice thoughts on a calming day. Also, if you're loving the podcast, I do a paid subscription of 99p a month where you get an extra episode on a Friday, which is a little bit more personal, and obviously a bonus episode, and any exclusive first access to any projects that I'm working on as well. So, if you want to do that, go for it. Otherwise, enjoy the show. Hello, wonderful listeners. I hope you're well. I hope you are having a wonderful week, whatever it is that you've been working on. Obviously, recently you'll have, if you've listened to recent episodes, realised that I've been posting a little bit more, which is great. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that. I have a couple of ideas milling around my head, what I would like that to look like, and not from an outcome point of view, but from a day-to-day point of view. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And I think this is also a message of encouragement to you, whatever it is that you're doing as well. Whatever you're working on, whatever stage that you're at, lean into how you're feeling about it. Explore the idea and dream of the idea of the things that excite you, that make you feel excited about pursuing the things that you're pursuing. Today's episode is all around work. It's around our job, our careers. I'm yet to come up with an official title, but the question that got me here was, what does work mean to you? So I was asking myself that this morning, and these thoughts came out around what it means to me, and I wanted to share those with you. I would also say there's been a couple of messages, and again, it depends if you're listening or not, but at the start of this year, a lady called Jade Hawkins emailed me from Canada. So if you're listening, this was related to career and work. And about a week ago, Lindsay LaFountain messaged me as well. So guys, if you're listening, I hope this resonates with you as well. Your words and your messages definitely helped create thoughts around this episode as well. So thank you. And I hope you enjoy that as well. So obviously the first question here was, what does work mean to you? And I think this is such a key question to ask ourselves regularly. It allows us to reflect as we grow and as we evolve through our work, job, career. Through time, our perceptions change, our characteristics change as well. We grow. And I think it's important to pause and ask ourselves this question at different points in our life. Some, it might be ambition. It might be validation. It might be opportunity. For others, it might be survival. It might be a means to an end. It might be lifestyle. And there's also the ins and outs of everyday life within your work and job. Is it to do with your values, your beliefs? Work that you find meaningful, not that other people are telling you is meaningful. Is it a nice environment? Is it working with certain people? Is it working on a project that's going to go beyond yourself? All of these different things are factors that are involved in whatever work means for us. I like to think a lot about the opportunity that we all have to make a meaningful impact on the world, and whether that's your first job, your second job, a job that you never thought you would fall into. The opportunity to make a meaningful impact on the world is minute. You can do it every day. And you should never underestimate that as well. When it comes to our jobs and how we should think about them, regardless of what stage we're at, I think there's some general rules that we should follow. And this is just from experience, just my thoughts, but also just perspectives that I've heard as well. I think the first thing here we need to do is zoom out. We need to think in the long term. We need to think in decades, genuinely. We can feel a pressure to get a job or be in a career that we think that we know what we want to do for the rest of our lives. It's not that easy. We need to be open to experimenting in the long term. There is a lot of pressure, perhaps too much pressure, to do just one thing and choose one thing, especially when you don't know. A lot of our learning comes from experience. So through this experience, we learn what we care about. Through this experience, we understand what we want to pursue further. Another element to consider here is, especially if you're at the early stages of your career, potentially out of school, graduating, first job, that a lot of the work that you do, it won't be about the work itself. It'll be about comparing yourself to peers. It'll be comparing yourself to the world. At this age, I did this. Or by this time, I had this title. And it's quite natural to go through that, but don't let it lead you. It can lead to misery. It can lead to blindly following something just for the sake of it, and not really taking in those things that I talked about at the start, those values, the meaningful impact on the world, potentially even the mastery, which I've been talking a lot about recently as well on the podcast. This comparison is purely status-led. It's for our ego. It's also for our own validation. If I have this title or if I've had this accomplishment, then it means that people will accept me more. But again, this goes back to our sentiment around you are good enough already. You don't need to be the best at something. You can if you want to be. You can work hard if that's what you want to do. But you don't have to be. You're good enough already. This long-term perspective and outlook should lead to this mastery, but it should encourage us to master things. It should encourage us to hone a craft. It should be curiosity-led. There's nothing worse than going to work and feeling like you're bored or you're doing it for the sake of it. Everything should be led by curiosity and that excitement to learn something new, to be on the boundary, be at the cutting edge of something. Yes, it might lead to mistakes, it might lead to errors, but at least you're trying. And this is why it's so beautiful that as an individual, this is the things that you have the opportunity to do. Obviously, another thing is money. Money will come and go, but as the old saying goes, it only solves money problems. If you end up and want to be really, really rich, you might you will sacrifice other elements of your life, whether that's relationships or health. It's not the be all and end all. It can be if you want it to be. But I think it's important to pause to reflect, to look at what we really want. There's never a time where you can't stop. I talked on the podcast the other week about walking away. You can restart whenever you want. Anything, again, if you think of the sunk cost fallacy around, I've put so much time into this, I can't possibly walk away. Yes, you might be right, but the skills that you've developed will be applicable in so many other fields and maybe something that interests you a bit more. This is potentially where, if we talk about money not solving all of your problems, that relates to lifestyle so much. If you get stuck in something that you don't like because you've fallen into it, is that good for your lifestyle? Is that who you really want to be? There's always going to be trade-offs here. If you're ambitious and you're wanting to climb the ladder, or you're wanting to become incredible in your field, of course the trade-off is going to be things like relationships, health, fitness, all these things. But at the same time, it's also acceptable to have a job that allows you to have this lifestyle, that allows you to have these healthy relationships, to be healthy, to be fit, to be mentally sound. And that's okay. Know what your trade-offs are, and this is where you go back to your values, you go back to your beliefs. What are the things at this moment that are important to you? Another point to consider here with what work means to us, our job, career, thoughts, is that there are going to be key people along the way. There's going to be pivotal people at certain points that you meet that you need to listen to. They'll be passing on advice based on things you maybe haven't encountered yet. I remember very early on in my career, when I had the opportunity for my first full-time job, I also had the option to study, and I got advice around that, which was very useful, put me on my way. I remember there was a time I had a job that was technically full-time, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And indirectly, by showing up every day and showing the characteristics and attributes that I know are my strengths, I had an indirect effect on someone that allowed me to get into a course that I didn't even know would have been a factor in me getting into that course, but it was my personality that allowed me to get into that. And these key moments, key people at different stages are worth listening to. I'm not saying that you have to make a correct decision, but you will have to make a decision. And that decision will be based off of the advice as well as where you stand, who you are, what you believe in. And this will ultimately guide you down a path that should excite you, should inspire you, and unless you are in survival mode with work, job, whatever, it's a waste if it doesn't excite you, if it doesn't inspire you. Time goes so quick once you're working. You get into routine, you get used to things. So you need to make sure that time spent, that precious time spent working on things day in, day out, matter to you. They push you to your boundaries. They allow you to explore all the possibilities that you can explore as part of your job and career. This importance of pausing and reflecting and taking note is so important when it comes to the skills that you develop, as well as the development of your natural attributes. I talked a little bit about characteristics and attributes on the podcast the other week, and noticing how those natural attributes come to the fore, you need to acknowledge them to be able to play them in the best way possible for yourself. You don't want to be masking yourself at work all the time. Bring your best self to work and see the impact that it can have on not just the role, but others around you and the field that you're in. Use others as a point of feedback around these attributes, around these things that you're good at, until you pick up the commonalities that people are recognizing, so that you know yourself better. You know where you stand. You know what impact you can have by behaving in a certain way. As a side note, always put yourself into opportunities before you feel like you are ready. There will never be a right time where you feel ready to carry something out. So ensure that you do that. If you're very early on in your career listening to this, I think it's important to recognize that a lot of places that you work are, in the first instance, on top of the technicality of the role, are looking for reliability and consistency. That is what matters at this point. And once you get through that and over that, it's about asking yourself that question: what more can you bring to the table? What more can you bring to the fore that isn't serving your employer or serving others? It's serving yourself. What are the things that you can develop? And I think if you're maybe in the midst of your career, or you're maybe at a point of change, point of inflection, it's maybe important to really consider the things that you want to be doing for the rest of your life. Work never ends. There'll always be something that you should work towards. It's just part of our genetic setup, how our brains are wired to work towards something. And I think it's important that you, if you are in that moment, that you find the things that you're curious about right now. It might feel scary having to feel like you're starting again, but as I said before, there's skills that you have that you can use. Find the things that you care about. Life is too short to not work on those things. Do things in your own time individually that serve that purpose as well. Or it might even just be time for a break. It might be that pause and reflection comes through a longer term break to allow you to discover the things that you care about. Work can be so busy that it doesn't even allow you to take that time to reflect regularly. And that's us today, guys. Those are thoughts around career, around job, around work. And as I mentioned at the start, thank you to those who have asked for those. I hope they help. All I try to do is give perspective, give thoughts that allows you to think a little bit more. Gives you that permission and safety to think, are you doing the thing that you want to be doing? So thanks again for listening, guys. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to do so. I hope you enjoyed it. If you loved it, share it with someone that you care about, that you think would benefit from it as well. And otherwise, I will see you all next time. Cheers. Hey guys, me again. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you're not ready for the Becoming Unstuck in 30 Days self-led course quite yet, why don't you try my free ebook I created? 5 simple steps to improve yourself and your life. I made this during the very first lockdown of the pandemic, in the early days of the self-improvement project. It's a quick go-to when you're feeling unsure what to work on when improving yourself or your lifestyle. And the great starting point if you're trying to figure out how to live a more fulfilling and simple life. The link for this will be in the show notes for you. Have a good one.